What's going on, Internet? nerdlocker.com back with more comic reviews for you this week. And I'm starting off with Justice League, number 28. This is the origin story of the Metal Men and why they're not around. You basically get their first big adventure and their creation and just why Doc Magnus is a little hesitant to recreate them. But Cyborg's there and he's talking to him and explaining what's going on in the world right now and what they really need. And honestly, as far as, I said this before with the actual mini-series tie-ins with Forever Evil, but the books like Justice League and Justice League of America actually are really doing a great job of broadening the story from outside the pages of Forever Evil. And this is great. It just gets me more stoked for this event, and I really think this book's going to pay off. I mean, I know I said a while back, I kind of feel like I know what the ending's going to be, but I feel like there's a lot of surprises we haven't seen yet in classic Jeff Johns fashion, and I'm going to keep reading this. I'm giving this issue, though, 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
Hey there, nerds. Jim here with my comic book reviews, and my first one up is Unity number 4. I'm a big fan of this book. I wasn't sure when I first started reading it, but Matt Kindt is a fabulous writer. I really like how he draws all these people in, and basically it becomes superhero politicos and a lot of intrigue. This book is a little odd in that it sort of does flashbacks from different perspectives, and we actually join up with the reporter that Eric, Exo-Manowar, saved in the first issue. What I like is we see the different perspective, and we continue to see this intrigue. Harada is obviously pissed at what happened in the last issue, but we see the events that led up to Livewire stealing the armor back, basically because she knew Harada was not to be trusted. So we see these events happening, and then at the end, we see more intrigue. We see backstabbing and more backstabbing on top of backstabbing. You're like, who is with what? This is supposed to be a team. This is the most effed up team I've ever seen because nobody's on the same team. And then there's Ninjak, who I didn't know anything about till this book, and I love Ninjak. He's a fabulous character. I highly recommend this book. I think Matt Kindt is doing a fabulous job writing basically a non-team superhero team, if that makes any sense. I'm going to go ahead and give this book 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
Hey guys, I got the pleasure of checking out another number 1 out of Image Comics this week with the Undertow, written by Steven Orlando, and artwork by Artyom Trakhanov, I want to say. I don't want to mispronounce it, but it was great artwork. I really liked this book just because it surprised me on a couple different times throughout the issue. Right when I was kind of confused in the first few pages about this story where obviously there's wars going on in Atlantis. This is from the point of view of species living within the ocean. And it changes it up when you learn that it's not current time, that when they come up to air, there are actually primitive beings up, and so you learn that their technology is far advanced over humans, and just to see how it jumps a couple different times throughout the story, I really liked it. The artwork was interesting. The use of colors in different ways was excellent. So I'm going to give this book 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls because the technology alone was really interesting. So you're going to want to check it out.
All right, guys, Kevin here with my comic reviews for this week. I got to read New Warriors number 1, and while I wasn't too stoked on this book because I'm not really a big New Warriors dude, I just wanted to give it a shot and give something new a try, especially since it's a really weird team to try to give a reboot, especially after Civil War, especially that everyone still remembers Civil War. It's not DC where they can just go boop and no one remembers anything. Everyone still is really pissed about it, really pissed about it. If people say 9/11, people still get pretty upset about it. I mean, it's a thing. It happened and it still affected people. So the fact that they keep that in Marvel continuity like that is really awesome to me. So that happens. And that gets brought up a bunch of times and it's really cool. But I think the cool thing about New Warriors in general is that it's a bunch of young dudes, young kids that are trying to get together and trying to do something cool. And yeah, they were trying to be a reality show back, especially when Civil War happened. But I think as just a group of people getting together, superheroes, it's kind of like the Runaways or the Teen Titans. Is just not as, it's Batman's guy and this guy. It's just a bunch of ragtag team of kids doing it, and they really pull through with this. And Nova being in it is pretty awesome. And it ends in what? The High Evolutionary? He hasn't been around in ages. So that's pretty sweet. So check it out. I'm actually pretty stoked on it. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
All right, I got to read Batman and Robin number 28, or Batman and Two-Face. And this is the big, giant, climactic conclusion to this story. And something happens at the end of this that is so completely mind-blowing that I want you guys to read it, and I want to know what you think, if this is something permanent or if you think they're going to find a way out of it. I don't want to give anything away. I want it to be a complete surprise. But dealing with this character in the last pages of the book with what happens, I want to know what you guys think. I think it's outstanding. I don't know if it's something that's going to stay, cemented in concrete. But I mean, this is really big. This is the biggest thing to happen outside of the Batman title in a while. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'm giving this issue 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
So next up, I have Quantum and Woody, number 8, another Valiant book, and again, one of my all-time favorite team-up characters in comic history. I love these guys. This one picks up right where we left off. They're in the white supremacist camp, and they're being attacked by the sort of government agency. They're way offshoot. And again, Quantum and Woody have to team up with the white supremacists, which is a big deal for Quantum because he's black. And it's funny how they integrate this, especially since the white supremacists sort of hold Quantum up to this high standard with the mask on, not realizing he was black. So we get through that, and to be honest, it felt like it was a story just to get through. But that's okay, because we still have the awesome humor that goes on between Quantum and Woody. Case in point, Woody finds out Quantum is a Republican, and it cracks me up how they go back and forth with this revelation, Woody not understanding how he could do that right in the middle of this huge battle that's going on. And it's pure humor. Quantum finds out a little bit more about his powers, which is very cool. And then we cut to them basically finishing that battle, back in the city, establishing what their new life is going to be. And again, the humor, the revelation, because Quantum's been out of it for a little while as far as being in the city life. And it's very cool. I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. If you're not reading it already, check it out. James Asmus has done a great job with his team. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
Hey guys, I read Alex and Ada number 4 this week, and it was excellent because the artwork's great. Jonathan Luna is excellent. Sarah Vaughn is awesome as well. This team up is just great. I love this book just because it's so futuristic, and every time I feel like it's getting a little bit too much like the movie Her, which is, if you checked out my review or heard my review, I did not really like that movie. It was very depressing. This is totally different. You got a lot more story development in this, and the characters and how they like each other are a lot better. How our main character interacts with his android is very interesting. In this issue, he definitely does not want just to have a robot. He does not want to be someone's master. He wants a friend. He wants someone that he can actually have a real conversation with. And so in this issue, he seeks out how to give his android sentience. So it gets really interesting by the end of the book. But what happens in the last page, the last panel, makes you want to just shut it and read the next issue. But you're not going to be able to. I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls because it was an excellent issue, and you should be reading Alex and Ada.
All right, guys, I got to read Avengers World number 3, and holy crap, Shang-Chi rules, dude. Like, seriously, this is a full-on Shang-Chi versus Gorgon, and he's on the back of a dragon that he's controlling, and it's Madripoor actually on the head, and it's, whoa, but Shang-Chi just doing his thing, dude. Like, you just get in his mind, and that's all it is. It was so good. 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. Read it. If you're not reading this book, you're dumb. Straight up.
All right, I got to read Amazing X-Men number 4. This book is awesome. And it's not just because I'm a giant Nightcrawler fan or a giant Ed McGuinness fan or a giant Jason Aaron fan. It's just an outstanding book. We finally know what the origin of the Bamfs are. And it's hinted at something that Nightcrawler really had to do some stuff that he may not get back or has really affected him in a really, really deep way just to help out his friends and, help create the Bamfs and they've been doing stuff. We've seen them all over Wolverine and the X-Men, but you kind of find out what's been going on and just the price it might cost. They don't say anything, but there's a big thing he alludes to. We also see Firestar literally lighting hell on fire to save Iceman. This book's just awesome right now. We have hell pirates fighting the X-Men, and by the end of this book, it really looks like this next issue is just going to be the big payoff action awesomeness that I've been expecting. I love this book. I suggest you read it. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
So next up, I got to read The Terminator, Enemy of My Enemy, #1. Another Terminator book out of Dark Horse. I love the Terminator series. I love the movies. I love the books that Dark Horse is doing. This is fantastic. If you haven't read the J. Michael Straczynski run over on Salvation, The Final Battle, check it out. It's fantastic. For this book, the tagline was basically a Terminator gets sent back in the future, but this time Kyle Reese isn't there to protect anyone. And I'm like, man, they're just going to rehash that story? That's kind of lame. But luckily, Dan Jolly stepped up. He really did a great job. He introduces us to Farrell Green, who is a disgraced CIA agent now serving as a bounty hunter. And right off the bat, we see she's badass, is very, very inventive how she does her job, and she's not going to lose, which is perfect because it's basically Kyle Reese. So I like that dynamic. The big difference is she's from the present time, 1984. She has no idea anything else that's going on. So she's given a contract for Dr. Elise Fong to bring her in. And all she knows is that there's a pharmaceutical company that's hired her. And that's all we know. We don't know anything more either. We get the lightning flashing, blah, 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 and we see a Terminator, a T-800 come back. And basically they meet up because they're both going after Dr. Fong. Again, we have no idea why. All we see is Farrell trying to kick butt, not being able to kick butt because it's a Terminator. And she does she shoots him in the head and she sees metal. Scene over, she's able to escape, Terminator walks away, nobody gets Dr. Fong, and obviously there's a lot of questions. Farrell has no clue what's going on, can't fathom how this thing exists, what this thing is. I think it's a great start to a storyline. I love what Jolly did here, how he's really setting us up for more. I hope he takes it in the right direction. He's got my trust now, which to be honest, at the beginning with the tagline, I was like, oh, come on. But he totally turned that around with some great characters. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
All right, guys. So I did Conan #25. It's the last story arc, or it's the end of the Song of Belit. It's actually going to be the last of this Conan run. But holy crap, so good. All the things that he's gone through, you see him just not give a crap about anything. And finally he does care about something. And the way he sends off the love of his life, the reason he went through like this crazy, incredible journey, the thing that made him grow up, it's just incredible. It's an awesome way to end this kind of coming of age story for Conan, and you kind of get to see like where he goes on later in his life, becoming king and all this stuff. It's a cool introduction into kind of like a really heady, like, oh man, you get into his mind, you get into what he's thinking, what his characters are thinking, what his other people are thinking, really well in this book, and I highly suggest it to anyone. Go back and read it. The Brian Wood run is awesome. 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls, pretty much the entire way through. So do it, and it's badass. It's really badass what he does at the end. It's just like the coolest thing ever. All right, I'm done.
All right, I got to read Wonder Woman #28, and I can't not say anything amazing about this book. We get to see a giant fight between Apollo and the Firstborn on Mount Olympus, and it's gigantic. And you get to a point in this book where you're like, oh man, I'm going to turn the page, and there's going to be this crazy thing, and it's crazier than what I thought was going to happen. It's really hard to condense what's going on in this book because Brian Azzarello has done a great job of making this into one giant story. And it's just outstanding. And we get to see a Minotaur, and he's just doing all this great stuff with the history of Wonder Woman and Greek mythology and turning it into this just cohesive, awesome story. Cliff Chiang's artwork is absolutely beautiful, as always. This is a book everyone should be reading in the New 52, hands down. There hasn't been anything wrong with it yet, in my opinion. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. You guys need to be reading this.
So finally, I got to read Dexter Down Under #1. I'm a big fan of Dexter, the TV series. I watched every single episode on HBO, thought it was fabulous. That being said, I've never read any of the literature, the books, or the comic books, so I'm not terribly familiar with those storylines, but I do know they were different than the TV show. So that being said, I picked up Down Under, and I noticed first, it seems like there's a difference between the Dexter and the TV show. It seems like Dexter's a little more serious, a little more brooding in the TV show. And not that he's loosey-goosey or anything, but he's just a little more loose and a little more laid back in the comic book. And I don't know if that translates to the books themselves. There's some serial murders in Australia, and the Australian Police Department hires Dexter from Miami to come down to investigate with them, to help them. Great dynamic, fish out of water, fantastic, and the best thing they did, they paired Dexter up with a character who is very similar to Deborah, his sister. It's fantastic. It's Shauna Wiggs, part of the Australian Police Department. She cusses up a storm, and she wants to get her man and is always to the point, and it's fantastic. I love their dynamic. They immediately start right away searching for the killer. The one thing that's kind of cool about this is there's no relationship, meaning it's not brother, sister, whether it's step, adopted, blood, anything like that. So there's obviously a romantic factor because she's blonde, pretty good looking. It also delves into sort of this extreme racism that seems to be apparent in Australia. Again, I'm not terribly familiar with Australia. I don't know how real that is, but that seemed a very interesting topic to bring up. I'm very curious where this is going to go. My one disappointment with the book, I would say, is that it's truly a setup. We're going through a lot of story. This is here, setting us up to something bigger. So for that, I'm only going to give it 3 out of 5 Nerd Skulls, but I can't wait to see where this goes because I think there's more to it.
All right, guys, I got to read Harley Quinn number 3. I was a little harsh on the last issue, but like I did say, I would continue checking this out and trying to be positive with it. There are some things in this book that I am liking. The whole suspense of who put a contract out on Harley and, you know, why it's out on Harley. And you are really getting to see her in a different light. You know, she's trying to move on from being the psychopath and all the... I mean, she's still absolutely nuts. This is the Valentine's Day issue where she eats a berry from a plant poison ivy left her, and it makes everyone fall in love with her, and people are literally killing each other to get at her. So, I mean, this was a fun book. I liked it a lot more than the second issue. I still would like to see more of a story develop. She kind of... There's some character development in this one about what she's going to be doing in the meantime, but I'm waiting for that big, just everything to blow up in her face and see what happens. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. I'm giving this issue 3 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. Let me know what you guys think.